Welcome back to Outdoors with Larry Ray on 790 The Bet. Brought to you proudly by the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency.
New day's dawning, and it's calling you and me. Where the mighty Mississippi flows.
All right, welcome back. Bill Cooksey and Ron Wong, co-host. Is this not the fastest 90 minutes in outdoor radio programming?
It is.
Real quick.
It may not feel like that to Brad Carson, who is...
No, it goes pretty quick. I enjoy listening to y'all talking about outdoors on these last couple of weeks. Has been fun, Larry.
Well, you had a 32-inch sleeve when you came in here, but now it's 34. You're pushing all them.
No, I enjoy being here with you guys.
Well, appreciate you doing it, and thank Ron, too, for that. And, Bill, I know this next guest has been on the show before, very familiar person with our good friends at Delta Waterfowl. And I don't know, Bill, before I let you introduce him, I did some checkup on him, and it says he's also considered the only biologist to have captured or banded every species of ducks, geese, and swans native to North America. Now,
that's pretty strong.
That's pretty strong. Why don't you introduce this strong man for us, okay?
Well, I'm going to introduce him, but I also want to set it up so he knows where I'm coming from.
Okay.
The other day, about the time you asked me about possibly getting a guest today, I got a text from one of my Duck Club members with an article from North Dakota where they said it's going to be the best fall flight since '98. That was kind of the headline.
Ooh,
so, man, it got everybody in my Duck Club all excited because some of us are old enough to remember '98, and it was pretty doggone good.
I feel like Fred Sanford. I think Elizabeth, get ready. I think I'm coming.
And right then I got on Facebook and I looked and I noticed Chris Nicolai of Delta Waterfowl. I think he was in Alaska, if I'm not mistaken. I know he was off somewhere doing some really fun-looking stuff. And while I would like to spend the next 15 minutes talking about that trip, I also want him to tell us kind of what we're really looking at out of the prairie pothole region on ducks, especially ducks for the Mississippi Flyway. So, Chris, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being on, and tell us a little about your trip, and then let's talk about ducks for this fall.
There you go, Chris.
Yeah. No, hey guys. Thanks for having me on again. Always fun to talk about waterfowl.
Yes.
Amen.
Yeah.
Where have you been, Chris? Because I saw you on Facebook, and it looked like some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. No, headed up to Southwest Alaska the second week of September, catching a bunch of salmon, shooting a bunch of cool geese, a bunch of pintails, a few ptarmigans. It was a good time.
And then Bill goes nuts when he sees his report, Chris. So, duck hunters are the most optimistic people I've ever seen in my life. Everybody says it's going to be the greatest year ever. And then certain things happen under our control. And I know you guys at Delta Waterfowl out of Bismarck do a lot of checking over the. So tell us, give us a synopsis of what's going to happen. And Bill's done talked about. I hope he meant 1988, not 1898.
1998.
1998. Okay, Chris.
Good year.
Tell us what's in the crystal ball for you.
Yeah, well, I'd love to see that article because I've tried not to have excessive optimism.
There you go. A real duck hunter. Yeah.
Yep. So I'd like to reel that back a little bit.
Reel it, Chris. Reel it for us.
Yeah, well, and there's two parts there. So, one is the results from the BPOP survey that basically sets the stage for what can be done for production this year.
Yeah.
So you got to be real careful with that one. I mean, the BPOP this year was actually, for mallards especially, mallards were the lowest BPOP counted since 1993.
Really? Okay. All right.
So you got to keep in mind, water returned. The 80s drought broke in 1994.
Yes.
Another really neat thing that happened is the adaptive harvest management started in 1995. So here we are with mallards going back to the lowest numbers in 30 years and the lowest numbers since we've been managing ducks with AHM.
Well, you just brought me back to life, Chris. I mean,
yep.
how much better news can you tell me than that? I mean,
yep. Well, that's the bad stuff.
Okay.
Then,
all right,
you got to keep in mind, hardly anyone does brood surveys anymore. The only real exception is North Dakota.
Okay.
And, North Dakota is a pretty small part of the prairie pothole region. I mean, it's big,
yes,
but it doesn't compare to the massive, size of prairie Saskatchewan and Alberta.
Right.
It's still important, but it ain't the powerhouse or, geographically the powerhouse. But when you look at their survey, which they've been waving around for 2 or 3 weeks now, their brood surveys skyrocketed, 80% over last year?
Okay, all right.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So when you guys, back in the intro and everything, you guys mentioned one of the biggest fall flights from 1998. You got to be careful how you scale that, right?
Okay.
Is it absolute number? Probably not. But what I would say is it's probably one of the highest proportion of young that we have seen in a long time. It's just we started with a low number with that sad bee pop. But, boy, there's a lot of conditions, especially as you mentioned also earlier, a qualifier about the Mississippi flyway.
Yes.
Is as you move east through the prairies, things got a lot better.
Yeah.
Now, if you're Central Flyway or Pacific Flyway looking for prairie duck production, you're going to be sad because, Western Saskatchewan and Alberta, they're in their 8th year of basically catastrophic drought. I mean, the farmers are hurting.
Yeah.
Crop yields are almost nothing. And, there's some routes that struggled to count ducks on the bee pop this year.
Wow.
Wow.
So
that's amazing.
Just wanted to rescale that. It's not doom and gloom, but boy, if it's anything other than a good old in-the-middle average, I'd be surprised.
Well, I am tickled that you're talking about the young ducks because you smart duck guys, I've always heard, and you may tell me I'm heard wrong, but often in the South, especially, one of the biggest factors in our final kill for the southern states will be the number of young in the flight.
Right. Yep. That pretty much, for every game bird, the proportion of young in the population totally predicts how good of a season it'll be, right?
Yeah.
You just have a whole bunch of naive birds that haven't been thinned down yet, and, hunting takes out a proportion of them, but there's still plenty left for all the natural systems to take their share as well and, have some new breeders for next year. So, everyone's happy when you got naive young birds, pheasants, mallards, geese, you name it,
And again, we're talking to Chris Nikolai from Delta Waterfowl. And Chris, I know the Mississippi River here is about to hit a record low, breaking the record from last year. And we're in drought situations up and down the Mississippi Flyway, where the Mississippi water comes from primarily, not around here. We got some rain early this week. A lot of my friends that duck hunt are worried about water situations, and that always deals into it, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that you get into all the migration, staging and wintering areas.
Yeah.
And it's totally driven by water. Yeah, I've talked with a lot of friends, coastal Louisiana. I mean, they're saying it's some of the driest that's ever been recorded.
Bad, very
Dale?
bad. Yeah, I'm talking to them every day, and it's rough. There are people not hunting because there's just no water.
There's no water.
Big time. And it's interesting. You go 200 miles to the west, and you hear East Texas folks not complaining a whole lot.
Yeah. Well, we had a wet July, and then we had no rain here in September until just recently here, and everybody is prone to look at it. Of course, we've already had our early wood duck and teal season has already come through here, and of course we got time for this. So the doom and gloom of this is, do you see, Chris, from your perspective, the future? I mean, your crystal ball there. We always ask these guys these things, and Bill's the same way. I mean,
I've quit asking just about.
You have quit asking, so I guess I can ask. I mean, the man's a waterfowl biologist, okay?
That's right.
I mean,
That's right.
We got to ask him these questions. He's banded so many of them.
That's right.
So, Chris, what's you've given us a gloom and doom, and you said these other things like that. So, what's your prognostication, man?
Yeah, I mean, I think, in northern areas, people are going to, we've been used to this drought, like I was saying, for about 8 years. It's been pretty spotty.
Yeah.
Hunting up here last fall was quite interesting. If you could find water, you found a lot of birds.
There you go.
Usually other hunters.
Yeah.
Migration areas, boy, if you got, staging areas, stuff like that, if you got water, you're going to be in pretty good shape because it's going to be the limiting factor. And then that probably carries over to the wintering grounds, the more southern areas. If you have it, they will come. If they can't find it, they'll go look for it somewhere else, or are they going to go use more brackish saline water because there's no fresh water for them to find?
Right.
Will they move east? Will they move west? Shift around a little bit. And they definitely need water, so they'll work hard to find it. And boy, if you've got the ability to have water when no one else does, it's a good year to be you.
It's a good year to be you. Well, Chris, I know that I did some research here, and at one time you were an aviation major. Is that right?
Oh, for about 3 weeks.
That's what I wanted to make sure. And you quickly became a waterfowl man, okay? Yeah. Well, I appreciate you being with us, buddy, for being on today's show, and we'll stay in touch. And, Bill, thank you for hooking up with Chris. And, Chris, again, tell all the good folks at Delta Waterfowl hello for us from Outdoors with Larry Ray, and hope we'll get some good news and talk to you down the road. Okay, man? All right?
No, that sounds good. You guys gear up for a good season, and, we're opening up here on Saturday. So
all right. Go for it, buddy. Okay?
It'll be good here.
Get them, Chris.
Yeah, send 2 or 3 down to Cooksey, though, okay? All right. Thank you, Chris. All right. Thank you, Bill, for hooking up with Chris Nicolai there, and appreciate Chris taking time there. I don't know how to take it, you duck hunters.
Well, Larry, in the end, it's kind of the universal truth of waterfowl hunting.
Yeah.
How your season is largely going to depend on how your local habitat is.
That's it. Yeah.
Period. End of story.
Yeah. And we may say that probably again next year and everything.
Yep.
All right. Well, let me tell you about next week's show real quickly here before we get out of it. Ron Wong, thank you for being with us in the studio, Ron.
Always fun.
Thank you, Bill.
Always
thank you, Brad
great.
Carson.
Ron keeps it lively in here.
Yes. Fifth Saturday next week. You know what Fifth Saturday means. That means that we'll have Dave Gabbard and Gene Smith. We're the only radio show that's got its own pun master. So Gene will be in next week with lots of puns. You know that he'll do that. We'll talk about the opening of the bow season. John Gordon, we have to give Ducks Unlimited equal time, Bill. Okay?
That's right.
We got Delta Waterfowl this week. John Gordon will be in studio next week to talk about what's going on at Memphis-based Ducks Unlimited. So we'll have John in there. And as we always do on this show every week, what do? We say it doesn't cost an extra cent to be a good sport. And what else, guys?
God bless the USA.